Part 26. She Always Loves to Sleep. Author, Guy and Faye. Chapter 252. Chapter 252 looks like it's not easy to mess with. Second update. Chi Maoi's eyes lit up, she smiled at Shui Kong, ran over and sat next to her, held her arm and said, "It's better for you, Sister Kong Kong." Shui Kong stretched out his slender jade finger and pointed at Chi Maoi's smooth and white forehead, with a smile in his eyes, "But this is not the reason why you forgot today's welcome banquet. Tell me, how do you want to be punished?" Chi Maoi's mouth immediately dropped. Several other people laughed like crazy. "Ha ha ha ha, Chi Xiaoei, you have today too. That's it, I let you show off your power in normal times. Is your retribution coming? Sister Kong Kong is our eldest sister. You dare to be late for my eldest sister's welcome banquet. Don't you want to mess around?" Chi Maoei narrowed her eyes and glared at them. She picked up the wine glass on the table and drank it down in one gulp, instantly winning applause. Ye Wangzhen sat next to Chi Maoei, raised her eyebrows meaningfully at her, and asked, "Chi Xiaoei, your third sister-in-law, really knows how to come?" When Li Ju was mentioned, everyone fell silent and looked at Chi Maoei with bated breath. "Of course, we don't care who invited them," Chi Maoei gave them reassurance. Everyone cheered, finally getting a glimpse of the woman who could steal the third master's heart. Only Shui Kong frowned, with some concerns in his eyes. "Why Wei, is this okay? Today is not a formal occasion. We haven't prepared any greetings. It's too rude. What should Li Ju do if he thinks they are rude and disrespectful? What they will lose is their family's face." Chi Maoei waved her hand nonchalantly. "It's okay, Sister Kong Kong, don't worry, Ajiu never cares about this, she's easy to get along with." "Really?" Shui Kong's brows were still furrowed, as if he couldn't believe what she said. In a big family, everyone's actions represent the family. Although they are wealthy daughters, they all represent the face of their own family. Calling Li Ju out so hastily today may leave a bad impression on her. Impression? Seeing what Shui Kong was worried about, Chi Maoei sighed secretly. A person like her was obviously a socialite who was carefully cultivated by a big family. She was a perfect lady in terms of personality and demeanor. This is the most pitiable thing. She lives without herself in a wealthy family and wears a mask all day long. She is tired just looking at her. If it had been anyone else, she would have been mentally disturbed. Fortunately, Shui Kongza looks quiet but is actually very talented. Girls with perseverance will not be overwhelmed by those things. Despite this, Shui Kong still has a comprehensive style of doing things. Chi Maoei patted her shoulder and said, "Sister Kong Kong, Ajiu doesn't like the behavior of rich families, so you don't have to do this in front of her." "Fine." Ye Wangzhen became a little curious. She blinked her clever eyes and asked, "What kind of person is your third sister-in-law?" Chi Maoei thought for a while. "Ajiu, she is nothing like you wealthy daughters. She has no airs and doesn't like to play around. She is more casual and irritable. If anyone messes with her, it is impossible not to be beaten with a hammer." Some people covered their mouths in surprise. "Oh my God, I heard that she has a bad temper and is the school bully of Imperial University. It turns out it's true." "It's true, so I remind you, be careful and don't talk nonsense." Chi Maoei glanced at them and said. Everyone nodded, their eyes full of seriousness. After a long time, Chi Maoei suddenly laughed and said, "Don't be so serious. In my opinion, Ajiu may not lose his temper when he sees you." Shui Kong frowned and asked in confusion, "Why?" Chi Maoei, "Because she likes beauties. It's no secret that Ajiu is a Yanggu, and she doesn't care whether she's male or female, as long as she's good looking, it doesn't matter whether you're male or female. As these ladies from the imperial capital, their looks are naturally not that bad, especially for girls like Shui Kong, who are quiet and generous and can make people feel protective. She remembers that Aji likes this the most. Just as Chi Mao Yi was thinking about it, the person in the box was suddenly pushed away. In an instant, everyone's eyes fell on the thin figure of Qing Jun at the door. Li Ju was wearing a black hooded sweatshirt with tight jeans underneath, which made her thin figure stand out. Her long black hair was hung casually behind her because of the drizzle outside, and the tips of her hair were wet, twisted into strands. The whole face was shrouded in moisture and became more delicate and white. The thick and curled long eyelashes were illuminated by the lights in the box, casting a shadow on the eyelids. There was a coolness between the brows and eyes. The eyes were piercing and the aura was compelling. People feel as if they are in the harsh winter, with lingering fears in their hearts. Xuekong's hand holding the wine glass trembled, and the wine almost didn't spill out. He was shocked by Li Ju's eyes, a chill rose up his spine, and his finger knuckles began to turn white. Others are not much better. I originally heard Chi Mao Yi talk about her and thought she was easy to get along with, but now when we meet, it is extremely difficult to even look at her. Ye Wangzhen and Xuekong secretly looked at each other, and both saw a hint of a wry smile in each other's eyes. This is what Chi Mao Yi said was easy to get along with? Doesn't look like a big boss who can get along well with others. Chi Mao Yi suddenly jumped up from the booth, frightening everyone present to tremble again. Immediately afterwards, she flew towards Li Ju under the horrified eyes of everyone. Ye Wangzhen and Xuekong, who were sitting next to her, could not even stop her in time. Just when they thought Li Ju would just get out of the way and let Chi Mao Yi fall to the ground, they vaguely saw the corner of Li Ju's mouth slightly raised, and then immediately reached out to catch her. Ajiu, you are here. Chi Mao Yi was like a cheering bird, excitedly holding her arm and introducing her to everyone. This is the Li Ju I told you, my future third sister-in-law. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Ju narrowed his eyes, raised his finger and struck her on the back of the head mercilessly. What are you talking about? Chi Mao Yi covered her head in pain, turned around and looked at her aggrievedly, and said, I'm not wrong. She was originally the future third sister-in-law. Watching the interaction between Chi Mao Yi and Li Ju, everyone looked at each other. Finally, Xuekong took a deep breath, stood up from the booth, walked up to Li Ju gracefully, showed a gentle smile, and said, Hello Miss Li, first time meeting me, I'm Xuekong. Li Ju looked at her, then nodded. With Xuekong's opening words, the atmosphere next became much more relaxed, and there was no condensation like when Li Ju first entered. Hello, Miss Li, I'm Ye Wangzhen, nice to meet you. Ye Wangzhen also stood up and walked to Li Ju, showing a friendly smile. The people behind him also said hello. Li Ju knew that they were all friends of Chi Mao Yi and nodded to them one by one. Chi Mao Yi took Li Ju's hand and sat in the middle of the booth. Next to her sat Xuekong and Ye Wangzhen. Xuekong is obviously the protagonist today, but when Li Ju arrives, everyone's attention is focused on her, but Xuekong is not annoyed. After all, she was also curious about what kind of person Li Ju was. End of this chapter. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy Enfe. Chapter 253. Chapter 253 Exposed in Public, First Update. Chi Mao Yi asked Li Ju excitedly, Ajiu, what do you want to drink? Li Ju frowned, sniffed it with his nose, and said, have you been drinking? Yes. She just had a drink, and she could smell it. It was amazing. How are you going back later? Li Ju asked with a frown. Xuekong and Ye Wangzhen looked at each other in private and felt that Li Ju cared about Chi Mao Yi very much. Since he came in, his attention had been on her and he had never talked to anyone else. Chi Mao Yi pouted, grabbed Li Ju's arm, shook it a few times, and said, let's find someone to drive for us. Aju, don't act like an old woman. It was not easy to get Li Ju out to play today. We must not spoil the fun. We must let Li Ju live an old age lifestyle and integrate into young people like them. Thinking about it, Chi Mao Yi picked up the wine glass and put it in Li Ju's hand, put his arm on her shoulder, and introduced Shui Kong to her. Come on, Ajiu, although I have said hello, I still want to introduce you grandly. Come on, Shui Kong, the eldest daughter of the Shui family, has just returned from studying abroad, and tonight's welcome banquet is held for her. After saying that, Chi Mao Yi leaned closer and whispered, she is the eldest sister to us little sisters. Everyone respects her and she can speak well among the wealthy families in the imperial capital. If you have a good relationship with her, you can be in the imperial capital go sideways. After receiving the look Chi Mao Yi gave him, Li Ju raised his eyebrows, without brushing her face, and said hello to Shui Kong. Hello, Miss Shui. Shui Kong was a little surprised when someone who just looked indifferent and didn't pay attention to anything suddenly greeted her, but he still restrained his emotions and said politely, hello, Miss Li is Wai Wei's friend and also my friend. If you need anything in the future, just tell me. Li Juruo looked at Shui Kong with interest, and his tone was relaxed and meaningful. Oh? What if I really need your help in the future? Shui Kong was stunned for a moment, then chuckled, then I will try my best to help. Li Ju also smiled a few times and took a sip of the wine in his glass. This Shui Kong is an interesting person. Although it was a polite statement, it still shocked the people present. Although the Shui family's status among the wealthy families in the imperial capital is not as high as that of the Li and Qi families, they are still very important. Shui Kong is even more famous among the ladies of the imperial capital. Her words can be said to be a guarantee for Li Ju. If Li Ju is in need, the Shui family can lend a helping hand. Ye Wangzhen immediately frowned, a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes, poked Shui Kong with her hand, and asked in a low voice, Kong, it's not necessary. Even if she is the third master's fiancée, there is no need for you to give her such a gift, a big commitment. Shui never gave her a disapproving look, her beautiful eyes flashed, and explained, Wan Xian, aside from her status as the third master's fiancée, she is also the daughter of the Li family. It's not that you don't care how much Mr. Li loves her. Clearly, having good relations with the Li family will only benefit us. Ye Wangzhen still frowned, but Kong, you don't have to do this. It will make people think that we are eager to stick to her. Shui Kong chuckled, how could that happen? But Ye Wangzhen hesitated, bit her lip, stretched out her hand and gently pulled her sleeves. You forgot that we have an incompatible relationship with Li Yun. They are sisters after all. I'm worried. Shui Kong patted her hand comfortingly and said, don't worry, I think this Miss Li's personality is different from Li Yun's. I hope so. Today's welcome meeting was not as relaxed as usual because of the presence of an outsider named Li Ju, but that was only for Chi Mao Yi. Chi Mao Yi clinked glasses with a friend and drank them all in one gulp. When she turned around, she saw Li Ju and Shui Kong sitting there chatting happily. She couldn't help but be surprised. When did Ajiu and sister Kong become so familiar? When the people around saw this, they also asked, Wai Wei, have Miss Li and sister Kong known each other before? Chi Mao Yi shook her head, I don't know. Then why are they chatting so passionately, and how come they are so busy that others can't get in the conversation? Chi Mao Yi was also puzzled, she didn't know either. Ye Wangzhen's moving eyes were full of surprise, and she looked at the two people chatting in the corner in disbelief. In the past, Sister Kong would never have talked so much with people she just met. What happened today? Have you really met someone you like? How did they know that the two people who seemed to be chatting happily were actually filled with unspeakable undercurrents in the atmosphere between them? Miss Li is still in school. Yes, Emperor de. We are in the same school as Wai Wei. Have you and Wai Wei known each other for a long time? Well, we've known each other since childhood. Li Ju played with his jade fingers, which were like peeling onions, intending to tease her. Xuekong's eyes flashed, and doubt suddenly filled his heart. Since we have known each other since childhood, why did this illegitimate daughter of the Li family only return to the Li family 2 years ago? I know the fourth young lady of the Qi family, why not use the Qi family's connections to help find out about my life experience? Moreover, even if Li Ju didn't speak, it would still be weird according to Qi Mao Yi's character not to help his good sister find out her life experience. In addition, Li Ju and Qi Mao Yi have known each other since they were young. Why have none of them, her friends who are usually close to her, heard of Li Ju? They only learned that they were friends after Li Ju and Qi Sanyi got engaged. This doesn't make sense at all. Xuekong was full of doubts, lowered his eyebrows, narrowed his beautiful eyes, and a glimmer of light flashed under his eyes. Suddenly, she raised her head, with a very comfortable smile on her lips, and her beautiful eyes looked at Li Ju, like a clear mountain spring. I really can't tell that you have known each other longer than me. Li Ju smiled meaningfully and looked directly at Xuekong, his eyes so deep that the latter froze suddenly, and there was a fleeting stiffness in the smile at the corner of his mouth. After a long while, Li Ju chuckled lightly, with an irresistible sense of oppression in her clear eyes. She lowered her voice, lightly opened her red lips, and uttered a sentence that made Xuekong break into a cold sweat. Miss Xue, I advise you. You better not use your tricks on me, it's useless. Since Li Ju was sitting in front of Xuekong, just blocking her suddenly frozen expression, Qi Mao Yi and others did not notice anything strange. There was a lively chat over there, but the atmosphere here seemed to be frozen, solemn and chilly. After a long time, Xuekong finally sorted out his emotions, and his face returned to normal. He glanced at Li Ju's expression with lingering fear, and cautiously asked, "You, too?" Li Ju glanced at her, and with just that glance, she felt an overwhelming sense of pressure from the top of her head, making her breathless and her breathing became rapid. You are very brave to expose yourself in public, Miss Xue. In the last 3 words, the ending tone of Li Ju rises, aggravating the tone. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy Enfe. Chapter 254. Chapter 254 Senior, are you also from the Special Administration Bureau? Second update. The oppressive feeling around him was getting heavier and heavier. Xuekong's white forehead was already covered with fine sweat, his heart was beating violently in his chest, and his face was abnormally red. Hug, sorry. When Xuekong spat out 2 words, his expression was no longer as calm as before, but instead revealed a sense of fear. She just wanted to give it a try, wanting to see what the relationship between this man and Wei Wei was like, and what hidden secrets there were. I didn't expect that she would be so difficult to deal with. Li Ju glanced at her lightly and withdrew his pressure. The suffocating feeling all over his body disappeared, and Xuekong suddenly returned to the sea like a dehydrated fish, taking a few deep breaths. Although the pressure disappeared, her violently beating heart reminded her all the time that the person in front of her was dangerous and poisonous, and she would die if he touched him. Recognizing this, Xue subconsciously shrank back, his eyes looking at her filled with fear. Ye Wangzhen seemed to notice something strange here. She walked over and was shocked when she saw Xuekong's ugly face. Sister Kong Kong, what's wrong with you? Xuekong calmed down, tried his best to smile at her, and said, "It's okay, the box is too hot. I'll go out and take a breath." After saying that, he put down his wine glass and left the box, but his back looked very hurried. Ye Wangzhen frowned, and her suspicious eyes wandered over Li Ju's face several times, but found nothing unusual. "Did you guess wrong? Li Ju didn't bully Sister Kong Kong?" Li Ju's eyes fell on Xuekong's hasty back, and he didn't look back until she disappeared from sight. The corners of her lips were raised, indicating her good mood at the moment. She didn't expect that she could tease a newbie out so late at night. It's just that this little rookie is a little bit too new, and I can't help but laugh at it. Li Ju held her chin in thought for a moment, then stood up. Although this was not her jurisdiction, considering that she was Wei Wei's friend, it would be better to remind her, lest she get into trouble and implicate Chi Mao Yi again. Xuekong trotted all the way to the bathroom and poured a large handful of cold water on her face. The biting cold temperature made her instantly refreshed and sober. After calming down for a moment, he calmed down his chaotic and complicated thoughts, and turned around to go outside to breathe some fresh air. In the next second, he met Li Ju's eyes that seemed to be smiling but not smiling. Xuekong. The air was silent for a few seconds. Xuekong swallowed, and after mentally preparing himself, he asked tentatively, "Are you, also a person with superpowers?" Unexpectedly, she would ask directly. Li Ju raised his eyebrows, looked at her indifferently, and said nothing. Xuekong was so shocked just now that he didn't even realize what he said. When he came back to his senses, he suddenly remembered that this was a public place. There were people coming and going outside the bathroom, and there were surveillance cameras. He said this openly and honestly. It's just idiotic behavior. Xuekong's expression went blank for a moment, and his face immediately became apologetic. "Sorry, I was in a hurry and forgot the rules." Li Ju didn't care at all and just asked, "New guy?" Xuekong nodded sheepishly, as if he was stupid, and his expression collapsed a little. "I just joined the company last month and was transferred back to China. Special Administration Bureau." Xuekong blushed for a moment and nodded. Li Ju raised his eyebrows and looked her up and down. Her temperament and upbringing were excellent, and she was obviously a weak young lady. He really didn't realize that she was actually qualified to be transferred to the Special Administration Bureau. "How can you investigate the case with this helpless look?" Li Ju clicked his tongue twice in his heart. What were the senior officials of the Imperial Capital Special Administration Bureau thinking about all day long? Are the physical fitness standards of your Special Administration Bureau so low now? Ah! Xuekong was at a loss for a moment. After he realized what she was talking about, his face turned red to his ears. He lowered his head and said in an embarrassed voice, "I stuffed it in at home." Li Ju is aware of it, Guanhu. But it doesn't matter. In the past few years, there have been more and more related households in the Special Administration Bureau, but the above people have always turned a blind eye and muddle along. She also knows the reasons, so she has no intention of Xuekong using the back door. It's not a big opinion, I just said yes. However, Xuekong didn't think so. She had been strictly required by her family since she was a child, and she worked extremely hard in everything she did. She got everything by relying on her own strength. It was just this time that she couldn't control her family, so she agreed to leave. Back door. Now that I have told Li Ju, I feel ashamed. I will work hard and won't let others gossip. Xuekong raised his beautiful eyes and said firmly to Li Ju. This is not just for Li Ju, but also for herself. Even if she goes through the back door, she must work hard to surpass others and let others recognize herself. There is no idle talk. Unexpectedly, Li Ju laughed softly as if he had heard some joke. Xuekong didn't know why. Li Ju smiled and shook his head. He was indeed a newbie, and he was very enthusiastic. There are some things in this world that cannot be obtained by hard work alone. Miss Xue, people with superpowers are not ordinary people, and hard work alone cannot change anything. Xuekong frowned and disagreed with her words. Why can't it change? Compared with ordinary people, doesn't it mean that people with superpowers have different levels of brain development and stronger mental strength, so they can have special abilities? As long as you work hard to cultivate your spiritual power, You can improve your ability level, right? Li Ju's lips curled up slightly, without refuting her words. That's right. She was right, but not everything. Xuekong is just a newcomer after all. It seems that her family only had time to educate her about the difference between people with superpowers and ordinary people, but they did not explain the deeper meaning, which led to her such naive thinking. In Li Ju's eyes, newcomers like Xuekong who have just awakened are no different from children who are just a few days old and don't understand anything. But what does this have to do with her? She did not have the kindness to answer these questions for Xuekong. She would have to experience everything firsthand before she would be more convinced. And that was all she could say. Li Ju curled her lips and did not continue the topic with her. Don't use your mental power on others in the future. In a situation like today, if you are discovered, Wei Wei will be implicated. Xuekong blushed and said, "Okay, I understand." Li Ju nodded and turned to leave, but heard Xuekong ask behind him, "Senior, are you also from the Special Administration Bureau?" From the pressure just now, Xuekong knew that his level was not good enough in Li Ju's eyes, so he was right to call him senior. Li Ju paused, raised the corner of his mouth with a meaningful arc, and said faintly, "So be it." End of this chapter. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy Enfe. Chapter 255. Chapter 255. Li Yun is pregnant, first update. That counts? What is the answer? Xuekong frowned, and just when he was about to open his mouth to ask clearly, Li Ju had disappeared. Coming out of the bathroom, Li Ju walked along the same path and planned to go to the private room. Unexpectedly, he suddenly caught sight of an acquaintance from the corner of his eye. Li Yun was wearing a revealing and midriff-bearing outfit, with flaming red lips. She held her fair arm affectionately in Lu Shaokai's arm and was chatting and laughing with the people next to her in a very intimate manner. Li Ju raised his eyebrows. Didn't his last confession fail? How did these two get together? Lu Shaokai was unwilling to accept Li Yun at that time, but now it seems that the relationship between the two of them is quite close. It seems that a lot of things happened during this period. Li Ju's eyes flashed with a hint of interest. "Hey, Yun, look, is that your sister over there?" Someone was talking to Li Yun and suddenly pointed behind her. Because the lights in the corner of the bar were dim and they were so far away, the man was not sure. Li Yun looked along his line of sight, his expression suddenly turned ugly, and the fingers that grabbed Lu Shaokai's arm subconsciously tightened a little harder. Lu Shaokai frowned suddenly, his expression darkened, hissed, threw her hand away, and growled, "What are you doing? Why did this woman suddenly use so much force to strangle him to death?" Li Yun suddenly came to his senses and apologized quickly, "I'm sorry. Brother Shaokai, are you okay?" She reached out her hand to help him rub the sore spot, but he pushed her away. "Do not touch me." Li Yun's expression changed for a moment, but it was fleeting. She lowered her head and said in a very low tone, "Brother Shaokai, I didn't mean it." When the person next to him saw it, he immediately advised, "Shaokai, Miss Li didn't mean it. You're a grown man, so don't worry about it." "That's right, what are you afraid of if you are thick-skinned and thick-skinned? With a beauty like Miss Li by my side, it doesn't matter if she strangles me to death." "That's right." Everyone was laughing and joking, completely unaware of how ugly Lu Shaokai looked. Li Yun saw this and said quickly, "Don't say that, I can't bear to strangle brother Shaokai to death." As soon as he finished speaking, there was another round of laughter. Yo, are you feeling distressed? Sister-in-law really feels sorry for brother Shaokai, and can't bear to even pinch him. Hearing the last sentence, Lu Shaokai's eyes instantly darkened and he scolded, "What nonsense are you talking about? She is not your sister-in-law. Is she worthy of such a woman?" Li Yun's expression changed again, and he lowered his head, looking very depressed. When everyone saw this, some couldn't stand it. Brother Shaokai, you can't say that, right? You've brought her to see us, but you still don't allow us to call her sister-in-law. Every time he brought women to them before, he insisted on calling them sister-in-law. Why did he refuse to call them sister-in-law this time when they took the initiative? Lu Shaokai stood up from the booth, his expression turned ugly. The people around him were startled by his actions, and they fell silent and looked at him blankly. We were having a good conversation just now, why did we suddenly fall out? Everyone looked at each other, confused. Shaokai, what are you doing? Someone asked. Today was originally the time for Lu Shaokai and his friends to get together on a daily basis, but unexpectedly he brought Li Yun with him. Ever since Li Yun made a grand confession at the auction last time, everyone in the imperial capital knew that she liked Lu Shaokai. This time he brought Li Yun here, and they thought that the two of them had made a good deal, but the last time he refused her confession was because of the inconvenience of being in public. They also understood this. After all, they were as carefree as Lu Shaokai. They knew that agreeing to Li Yun in the last situation would involve the Lu family and the Li family, and they might even get married. He always likes freedom, why? May be willing to be bound by marriage. But it's one thing not to like being restrained, it's another thing entirely to get along with Lu Shaokai and Li Yun. For people like Lu Shaokai, there is no difference between changing women and changing clothes. In most cases, it is you and I who are willing to treat those women. After all the money, how can you not be tempted when you finally meet a rich and powerful daughter who loves you wholeheartedly and sincerely? Li Yun is also the most beautiful woman in the imperial capital. Her face and figure are first class. She has slept with her several times and it will not be a loss at all. I didn't agree at the time, but after teasing him a few words in private, this person didn't take the bait easily. So, when they saw Li Yun and Lu Shaokai together, they were not surprised, but rather expected. As a result, Lu Shaokai suddenly changed his face. From the looks of it, his relationship with Li Yun was not particularly good. Everyone is confused, what is going on? Li Yun was startled by Lu Shaokai's sudden movement and looked a little embarrassed. She immediately put on a smile and said, "Brother Shaokai, don't be like this. If you don't call me sister-in-law, don't call her sister-in-law. I don't have any objection." With that said, she stood up and pressed herself into Lu Shaokai's arms, saying coquettishly, "Brother Shaokai, it's my fault. I hurt you just now. Don't be angry." The movements showed the posture of the little daughter, and her face was blushing. If Lu Shaokai hadn't had a cold face, it would have been a very loving scene. Everyone couldn't help but stare. Normally, they would only see Li Yun once or twice at various high-class banquets. Back then, she was always elegant and generous, and her aloof attitude was so different from that of a little bird at this moment. It was quite a contrast. Big. Li Yun took in everyone's expressions, and there was a hint of pride in his eyes, thinking that Lu Shaokai must be very fond of this trick. Unexpectedly, Lu Shaokai took a step back calmly, widening the distance between her and him, as if he was avoiding something dirty. Li Yun's smile faltered, but she saw him leaning over her ear, saying viciously in a voice that only two people could hear, "Li Yun, don't think that you can do whatever you want by climbing into my bed and getting pregnant with my child." Li Yun's expression suddenly stiffened, the color on his face quickly faded, his eyes immediately turned red, and he looked at Lu Shaokai with a look of tears. "Brother Shaokai, I don't have one." Lu Shaokai didn't want to hear her continue talking at all. To be honest, he felt sick even looking at her now. If it weren't for the one in her belly, how would he pay attention to her? When he thought of this, Lu Shaokai was so angry that he wanted to strangle the shameless woman in front of him to death. She used such despicable means to climb onto his bed and become pregnant with his child, and then came to threaten him. Who gave her the face and courage? but there is no way. Although he usually acts a little randomly, he always takes good measures afterward, so there are so many women who have followed him, and none of them have fallen into the trap. Only Li Yun. He climbed into his bed while he was drunk, and then the child caught him even more off guard. She wanted her to abort the baby, but she threatened to tell the Lu family about her pregnancy if she wanted to abort the baby. The Lu family and his wife were deeply disgusted with Lu Shaokai's promiscuous style. If they knew that he had made a woman pregnant, why not break his legs? End of this chapter. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy Enfei. Chapter 256. Chapter 256 Liju, shut up. Second update. At that time, I'm afraid he will have to bear this responsibility whether he wants it or not. Let him marry a woman like Li Yun? Dream. Lu Shaokai snorted coldly, picked up the coat on the side with his long arm, and said to Li Yun, "You take your time here, I have to leave beforehand." He then left quickly, and Li Yun was too late to stop him. Seeing Lu Shaokai's back disappear from sight, Li Yun's face finally turned livid, his eyes were full of hatred, and the aura around him was terrifyingly cold. People around her were startled by her expression, thinking that she was unhappy because Lu Shaokai left her alone, so they all comforted her, "Miss Li, don't be sad, Shaokai has such a fiery temper." "That's right, sister-in-law, please forgive me, brother Shaokai, he definitely didn't mean it." "That's right, that's right." Li Yun was in a very bad mood now, but due to the presence of so many people, she had to maintain her gentle and graceful persona. The hands hanging by her sides clenched unconsciously, a smile appeared on her face, and she said, "I'm fine." The corner of his eye suddenly glanced towards the corner, and when he saw the familiar figure still there, Li Yun's eyes became even more gloomy. That familiar figure was undoubtedly Li Ju. She looked at it with her hands folded across her chest and couldn't help but click her tongue. It was really a good show. It seems that Lu Shaokai is destined to be entangled with Li Yun. With the male protagonist gone, the good show could not be performed. Li Ju turned around and wanted to leave, but unexpectedly, a voice came from behind, "Li Ju." She paused and turned around, and sure enough she saw Li Yun walking towards the side menacingly, his eyes full of anger. Anger? Li Ju raised his eyebrows. Is this person crazy? She was just watching a show, why were you angry with her? However, the reason why a mentally retarded person is considered mentally retarded is that she cannot understand it with ordinary people's thinking. Just like now, Lu Shaokai shamed her and left her alone. Li Ju witnessed the whole process of this scandal, and Li Yun thought that she was really mocking him and came to see his joke. So she quickly blocked Li Ju's way, stared at her with a gloomy face, and asked sternly, "Are you deliberately looking at my joke?" Li Ju. Li Ju was so shocked by her high decibel voice that she subconsciously stretched out her index finger to pick out her ears, and said calmly, "If you have a brain disease, I suggest you see a psychiatrist." Li Yun became even more angry when he heard this. He blushed angrily and pointed at her angrily, saying, "You are the one who is sick. You stalker. You are the one who followed me to the bar." Ah! Li Ju suspected that she was sick just now, but now it is certain. Would anyone in their right mind say something like this? She now seriously believes that Li Yun has mild persecution delusion and moderate anxiety. She usually dresses like a lady and socialite, but when it comes to her eyes, she looks like a lunatic in a mental hospital. Is it possible that she has an automatic disease diagnosis function? It's really baffling. Li Ju looked at Li Yun with indifferent eyes and said harshly, "Get out of the way." She doesn't want to talk nonsense with her now, that would be a waste of her saliva and time. However, Li Yun refused to let go and didn't want to let Li Ju go. She worked hard to get pregnant with Lu Shaokai's child, but during this period he was still ignoring her. Today he even broke up with her. If this continues, She has no idea that this child can still hold him. How long? She was already upset, but then she found Li Ju in the corner looking like he was watching a good show. How could she not be annoyed? If she couldn't express her bad temper today, her surname would not be Li. Li Ju, let me tell you, don't think Just when Li Yunchang wanted to teach Li Ju a lesson, the latter suddenly took a step forward and pushed her away with a dull look. Li Yun was caught off guard and her back hit the wall nearby, causing her to cry out in pain, which instantly attracted the attention of many people. Li Ju. Stop. How dare you push me? Those who were with Li Yun and Lu Shaokai just now ran over when they heard the screams. At a glance, they saw her holding her stomach and leaning on her face in pain. On the wall, immediately startled. Oh my God, Miss Li, are you okay? Sister-in-law. Several people hurriedly helped her up, and then quickly stepped forward to surround Li Ju. Stop. You pushed someone and you want to run away? Do you know who I am, Grandpa? Even if they were far away from here and didn't know what happened, combining what they saw just now and what Li Yun said before was enough to restore the truth. Hurry up and apologize to our sister-in-law, maybe I can spare you. That's it, hurry up. Li Ju squinted his eyes, glanced roughly at the people in front of him, and twisted his wrist. Each of them spoke in a loud voice, but I didn't know whether they would be able to beat them smoothly or not. But if you beat someone here, it may be a little troublesome to solve it later. And she didn't know what the power behind this bar was. If the follow-up issues were too complicated, then she would have to consider whether to use force. Hey, I'm talking to you, didn't you hear me? The man saw Li Ju standing there quietly and didn't speak, thinking that she was frightened by him. He felt proud and couldn't help but look at Li Ju carefully. This glance didn't matter, it allowed him to see Li Ju's face clearly, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Yo yo yo, this little girl's skin is quite beautiful. As he spoke, his eyes became more and more lewd, and he couldn't help but reach out his hand to pinch Li Ju's face. It looks so good, and it must feel good to touch. Li Ju's eyes narrowed slightly, a cold light appeared, and the air pressure around his body suddenly dropped. The next moment, he raised his legs, stretched out his feet, and kicked out with all his strength. There was a scream. The man's body flew out like a rag and hit the wall. The sound of broken ribs could be heard clearly. He slid to the ground weakly and fainted from the pain. The air was quiet for 3 seconds. In an instant, bursts of screams erupted in the bar. Everyone saw with their own eyes that Li Ju kicked someone away. The man immediately fainted and his breath was weak. At first glance, he looked like he was dead. They did not expect to see human life in the excitement. They were frightened and wanted to flee the scene immediately, causing a chaos. Li Yun was leaning against the wall at this time, his eyes were wide open, and he looked at the fainted man blankly, his voice trembling. Li Ju, you are done. Do you know who he is? You actually killed him. Ah! In the end, she couldn't hold it back any longer and screamed directly, the sound sharp and harsh, as if it was going to penetrate the ceiling. Li Ju was already annoyed by the screams of the people around her, but now she was howling like this, and she suddenly felt her ears ringing. So, Li Ju's eyes were as cold and sharp as a sword and shot at her, and his tone seemed to have been tempered by ice. Shut up. Li Yun was so shocked by her eyes that he subconsciously closed his mouth and did not dare to speak. At this moment, a group of uniformed security guards appeared out of nowhere and quickly and orderly suppressed the chaotic crowd. What happens? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy Enfe. Chapter 257. Chapter 257, Keeping It Is Still Useful. Xuekong came out of the bathroom and returned to the box but found that Li Ju was not there. After asking Chi Mao Yi and learning that she had not come back, he went out to look for her alone. As soon as she left the house, she heard a scream coming from the first floor. She immediately walked towards the source of the chaos, pushing aside the security guards who were maintaining order. At a glance, she saw Li Ju standing there quietly, with a leisurely posture and an indifferent expression. Looking back in front of her, the faces of several people looked as if they had been painted white. Xuekong frowned, walked to Li Ju, and said in a slightly surprised tone, "Li Yun." As he said this, Xuekong was filled with doubts when he saw Li Yun's pale, bloodless face. Was she seeing a ghost? His face is so ugly. Li Yun was shocked speechless just now by Li Ju's sudden kick. Seeing Xuekong appear, her eyes first flashed with surprise, and then disgust. "Xuekong, why are you here?" She and Xuekong are both the daughters of a well-known family in the imperial capital. They are similar in appearance and age, so they like to be compared by others. In the eyes of others, in terms of means and ability, she cannot compare to Xuekong at all. So, she gradually came to dislike each other. Xuekong took a rough look around and roughly restored the situation just now from the unconscious person lying on the ground and Li Yun's pale face. Seeing that Li Ju was still rubbing the solace of his shoes easily, he couldn't help but chuckle. "The bar is back again. It wasn't you, Miss Li, who drove it, so what does my whereabouts have to do with you?" "You dash." Li Yun's eyes widened and he looked at her angrily. However, before she could finish her sentence, Xuekong said again, "No, it's Miss Li Er." Although Xuekong's tone was calm and he was just stating a fact, he stepped on Li Yun's painful foot, causing her to explode on the spot. "What Miss Li Er? I am the real eldest daughter of the Li family." Xuekong raised his eyebrows and his eyes fell on Li Ju. "Miss Li, your sister doesn't seem to recognize you." Li Ju's eyes were indifferent. "I don't have a sister. That was a mistake on my part." The two of them sang together, making Li Yun's face turn red and white, making him look particularly ugly. By now, no matter how stupid she is, she can still see that Xuekong and Li Ju are in the same group. Her eyes were heavy and her tone was threatening. "Xuekong, are you sure you want to hang out with Li Ju? She is an illegitimate daughter. Don't be laughed at." A joke. Xuekong's tone was normal, but he said words that were inconsistent with her temperament. "I think you look like a joke." "You dash." "Okay, Li Yun, let's think about how to solve the problem at hand. You don't want to be on the hot search tomorrow morning, right, Xuekondeo?" The man was still lying on the ground, and the scene was in chaos. When she came over just now, she saw someone going to notify the bar manager, who should arrive soon. Making trouble in a bar is a big deal or a small thing. If he is let out, tomorrow's headlines will definitely be, "The rich and powerful daughter of the royal capital has a late-night bar fight and causes trouble." In this era of information explosion, public opinion is beyond the control of people like them. The most indispensable thing on the internet is keyboard warriors who hate the rich. If tonight's incident is exaggerated and spread by them, it will not only be them, but also the people behind them. The whole family will be affected. Solution? Is there any solution? It was all caused by Li Ju alone. The responsibility lies with her, Li Yun snorted coldly. People around him immediately echoed, "Yes, that's right." So many people saw it just now, and she was the one who moved it first. Li Ju glanced lightly, his eyes sending chills down their spines, and their necks shrank back involuntarily. She crossed her hands, intertwined her fingers, and pressed her knuckles to make a clicking sound. "Believe it or not, I'll give you another kick." One sentence, revealing a deep coldness. Everyone was frightened and backed away. They pointed at her with frightened eyes and said, "Look, look. She's still threatening us." It's no longer a threat if you say anything more. Li Ju raised the corners of his mouth and stared deeply. Watching them. Li Ju. You, don't be too presumptuous. Li Yun saw that she really wanted to take action again, his eyes trembled and he felt frightened. Presumptuous, who is so presumptuous? Li Ju suddenly stepped forward, grabbed Li Yun's collar, and choked her until she was almost suffocated. He pushed her directly against the wall, making a muffled sound, causing everyone to scream again. Li Yun suddenly screamed in pain, and her back hit the wall, causing pain all over her body. Xue Kong was also shocked by Li Ju's unexpected action, but she quickly calmed down. She believed that Li Ju had a sense of control and would not do anything to Li Yun. Hence, Xue Kong turned around and whispered a few words to the security guard. The security guard's face changed, and he immediately put on a flattering look. He responded and then dispersed the crowd of onlookers. After a while, she, Li Ju, Li Yun and the few people around her were the only ones left here. Li Ju put an arm across Li Yun's neck and said to her with a half-smile, "Sister, please clarify the situation. I was just passing by, but you insisted on stopping me and instigated a group of dogs to bite me." As she spoke, she stretched out her slender jade finger and pointed at a few people not far away. When those people heard this, their faces immediately became livid, and their eyes were full of anger. They are also wealthy young masters after all. They have been pampered and loved since childhood. When have you ever heard someone like Li Ju call them dogs directly? I only knocked out one dog that wanted to bite me. I was merciful if I didn't kill them all. Li Yun, I disdain to be as knowledgeable as an idiot like you, but that doesn't mean that my patience has no limit. After saying the last two words, Li Ju snorted lightly and let go of his hand. Li Yun suddenly lost control, his body went limp and he almost fell to the ground. She fell to the ground and looked at Li Ju with vicious eyes, as if she wanted to kill her with her eyes. Li Ju kicked his hands in his pockets and looked at her condescendingly, his eyes dark and his tone cold. "I'll say it one last time, don't provoke me, otherwise, I won't care if you are the daughter of the Li family or not, I will still send you in hospital." Having been in Li's house for 2 years, she has always been on the same page with Li Yun and his daughter. It's not because of anything else, it's just her physical disgust when she sees them. Xue Kong walked to Li Ju and whispered, "It has been taken care of. The matter tonight will not be spread." Li Ju looked at her sideways and raised his eyebrows slightly. Xue smiled from the corner of his mouth and said, "I am familiar with the bar owner." Li Ju nodded, glanced at Li Yun and others, and said, "Then please call the police, Miss Xue, saying that someone is causing trouble here." Once he heard the call to the police, Li Yun's sinister expression finally changed, and panic flashed in his eyes. No, she can't go into the police station, it will have a bad impact on her reputation. Biting her lip, she glared at Li Ju unwillingly, got up dejectedly and left quickly. When others saw Li Yun leaving, they also fled one after another. Seeing that Li Ju let them go so easily, Xue Kong couldn't help asking, "You just let her go like this?" "Li Ju, what a big wave a waist can make. What's more, keeping her is still useful." "Sorry. Kevin is stuck too badly today, there is only one chapter, let me sort out the plot first. In addition, I would like to recommend a wave of wonderful articles by Little Sisters." End of this chapter. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy Enfe. Chapter 258. Chapter 258. Throw it directly on the road, first update. When Xue Kong heard this, he knew that Li Ju had his own arrangements, so he kept his mouth shut. After a few words with the bar manager, he made sure that today's events would not be leaked, and returned to the box with Li Ju. As soon as she opened the door, Li Ju came face to face with Chi Mao Yi, who was drunk and her cheeks were red. The overwhelming smell of alcohol made her frown, but Chi Mao Yi was so drunk that she didn't notice it and insisted on pounce on her. It is difficult to maintain the balance of the body after being drunk. Chi Mao Yi looked at Li Ju with a double image. He finally walked in front of her and almost fell to the ground. Li Ju was the first to hold her up. "Ajiu, where have you been? What took you so long?" Chi Mao Yi lay on Li Ju's shoulder, humming and moaning a few words from her throat. "This is how much you drank." Li Ju was so angry that she wanted to roll her eyes. Didn't this girl know how much she drank? "Ajiu." Chi Mao Yi couldn't hear Li Ju's inner complaints. At this time, she was dizzy after drinking, and her temples were so swollen and painful that the eldest lady, who had been pampered for so many years, lost her temper and kept acting coquettishly. "I feel uncomfortable." Li Ju cursed, "You deserve it." Even though Chi Mao Yi was in a daze, she could still hear Li Ju scolding her, and she immediately pursed her lips, looking like she was about to cry. Xue Kong, who was following Li Ju, saw this scene and his eyes twitched. He turned around and asked Ye Wangzhen and the others, "How much did she drink?" Ye Wangzhen, who was holding a cell phone to record Chi Mao Yi's drunken and crazy behavior, coughed guiltily, took back the cell phone, and said, "It's not much, just 3 bottles." The sound insulation effect of the private room is top-notch. In order to enhance the atmosphere, they played music. The dispute between Li Ju and Li Yun on the first floor did not affect this place at all. And because Li Ju and Xue Kong never came back, they were bored and started playing Truth or Dare, with the loser blowing the bottle. Result: how did she know that Chi Mao Yi was possessed by a non-chief tonight? Xue Kong, beer. Ye Wangzhen shook her head. Red. Ye Wangzhen still shook her head, considered it, and secretly observed Li Ju's expression. Seeing that her expression was as usual and not unhappy because Chi Mao Yi was drunk, she breathed a sigh of relief and said frankly, "It's white." Xue Kong. Li Ju. 3 bottles. White? They just went to the toilet. Although there was a small interruption, it definitely didn't last more than 15 minutes. In such a short period of time, this girl drank 3 bottles of white wine? Does she think this is plain water? 1 bottle is several hundred milliliters, and 3 bottles weigh more than 1 kilogram. Did she think she was a wine barrel or something? Xue Kong simply didn't know what to say. She glanced at Chi Mao Yi, who was still lying on Li Ju's shoulder, and muttered something uncomfortable. She turned to Ye Wangzhen and told Ye Wangzhen a lesson: "You can't stop her from drinking so much, click it." Ye Wangzhen scratched her head and said, We were too busy having fun and didn't even notice." However, if she said this, she would definitely be criticized by Xue Jun, so Ye Wangzhen lowered her head as she spoke, skillfully pretending to admit her mistake. Xue Kong had nothing to do with her like this and could only sigh. Chi Mao Yi obviously couldn't stay here anymore after drinking like this. Li Ju was extremely grateful for his foresight and not letting this girl come to the bar alone. Otherwise, the news that the 4th Miss Ji family died late at night drunkenly on the street would be flying all over the sky tomorrow. Li Ju straightened Chi Mao Yi's body and held her down with one hand to prevent her from causing trouble. The other hand reached into her pocket and took out a bunch of car keys. "I'll send her back," Li Ju said to Xue Kong. Xue Kong nodded. At night, countless cars are running continuously on the road. The dazzling car lights are reflected on the car windows, reflecting tiny rays of light, like the dazzling stars in the sky. Chi Mao Yi squirmed restlessly on the passenger seat, her brows furrowed, as if she was being strangled and unable to breathe. However, Li Julai ignored her and focused on driving. Just now she helped Chi Mao Yi get into the car, but who knew that this guy was so drunk that he went crazy and insisted on dancing. He kept twisting on the passenger seat and couldn't fasten his seat belt. After working for a few minutes, a thin layer of sweat broke out on Li Ju Guangji's forehead. She crossed her arms across her chest, looked at Chi Mao Yi with a cold look in her eyes, and sneered, "You forced me to do this." The next moment, Li Ju stepped forward decisively, held down Chi Mao Yi with one hand, pulled out the seat belt with the other hand, and wrapped it around her body several times like a rice dumpling. Finally, Chi Mao Yi was exhausted from the tossing and finally fell asleep peacefully. Past. When they arrived at Chi's house, Li Ju put one of her arms on her shoulders and carried her all the way to the door of the house. The person who opened the door was Chi Sijin. The moment he saw Li Ju, he was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes fell on Chi Mao Yi beside her, and he immediately frowned. She drank too much. Li Ju hummed and let go. Chi Sijin immediately caught him. This girl is fooling around and drank 3 bottles of white wine. Watch her tonight, she will go crazy when she gets drunk. Good. Li Ju nodded, turned around and drove away back to Jingyuan. As soon as I entered the door, I found that the lights were still on in the living room. Li Ju was stunned. It was so late. Could it be that Chi Jinkai hadn't slept yet? As expected, the moment she opened the door, Chi Jinkai's eyes moved slightly, and he stood up from the sofa, his eyes as dark and as deep as a deep pool, looking straight at Li Ju. He was wearing a bathrobe loosely on his body, with the collar half open. Under the light, his cold white skin and the smooth lines under the bathrobe were clearly visible. Li Ju glanced downwards. This person was still wearing slippers. He must have been waiting for her after taking a shower. Why aren't you sleeping yet? As soon as she got closer, the smell of alcohol all over her body could not be concealed, and all of it got into Chi Jinkai's breath. Chi Jinkai frowned, a look of displeasure flashed across his eyes. Have you been drinking? No, Li Ju said. She had been holding Chi Mao Yi for such a long time just now, so it was normal for her to smell of alcohol. That girl Wai Wei, you dare to drink so much even though you know how much you can drink. After telling Chi Jinkai what happened tonight, Li Ju scolded Chi Mao Yi. Chi Jinkai frowned and said coldly, next time, just throw her on the road. How old is she? She has no sense of self-protection at all. She dares to get drunk when she goes out alone. Fortunately, Li Ju is here, otherwise this girl would be dead. She just wanted to fool around alone, so she decided to drag Li Ju along with her. Just now he wanted to talk to Li Ju about something, but he found that the person was missing, and the car keys at the entrance were also taken away. It was obvious that he had gone out. He was still wondering what Li Ju was doing out so late. He spent a long time watching Chi Mao Yi. This girl is too worried. Took his future sister-in-law out to fool around in the middle of the night. Are there any rules? Throwing her out on the street would be an advantage to her. Li Ju. Brother, that's your sister, so you don't have to. End of this chapter. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy Enfe. Chapter 259. Chapter 259 Chi Jinkai likes Li Ju, second update. Li Ju was speechless at Chi Jinkai's words and ignored him. He went back to the room and entered the bathroom. Leaving Chi Jinkai alone, the air pressure around him dropped inexplicably, his eyes became dark and deep, staring at Li Ju's door, and after a few minutes, he returned to the room. Li Ju finished washing and picked up the hairdryer to dry her wet hair. Suddenly, her cell phone rang. It was Shui Kong. Since Ye Wangzhen and the others were all there just now, she couldn't directly ask Li Ju about the Special Administration Bureau. Hello, Senior. Li Ju let out her voice and turned her head sideways to blow dry her hair. Water droplets dripped down her black hair into her white neck. Her profile was soft and delicate, like a painting under the light. What's up? The other end was silent for a moment, debating whether to speak or not. After all, they had just met and they were not very familiar with each other, and Li Ju's temperament did not seem like he would be enthusiastic about helping others solve their problems. But apart from Li Ju, she doesn't know any other people with powers. Not long after she awakened her spiritual power, she was assigned to the Special Administration Bureau by her family. Her schedule was very hurried, so she had to squeeze in time for tonight's welcome party. Before she left, her family members only gave her some general knowledge and basic rules for people with superpowers. There was no time to talk about the extraneous information, so now she is both looking forward to it and being frightened. She has been raised by her family to be a qualified lady since she was a child. She has her own standards for conduct and will not easily go out of line or enter unknown and unfamiliar areas. The awakening caught her off guard. For the first time in her life of more than 20 years, she felt at a loss and didn't know what to do. But years of habit prevented her from showing it in front of others and could only keep it in her heart. Li Ju's appearance made her scared for a moment, but then her suffocated heart suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it turned out that there were people like her. Perhaps, she can ask Li Ju for help. With this in mind, Xuekong made a call. "Senior, I'm going to the Special Administrative Bureau tomorrow. I want to ask you, if there is anything that needs special attention." Li Ju paused, not expecting that she was here to ask this question. "Have no idea." Xuekong was stunned for a moment and did not react. "Isn't she also from the Special Administration Bureau? How could you not know?" "Senior, didn't you say that you are also from the Special Administration Bureau?" That. Li Ju's eyes flashed and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. "I said I was from the Special Administration Bureau, but I didn't say I was from the Empire's Special Administration Bureau." Ah! Xuekong was completely confused. What did she mean? Is it possible that there is more than one Special Administration Bureau? You'll find out when you go tomorrow. Li Ju didn't tell her in detail, and hung up the phone after finishing her sentence. Tut! Newcomers. Xuekong looked at the phone that had been hung up, and was stunned in place. It took him a while to come back to his senses and realize that he had been hung up on. Looks like he doesn't want to say anything. As for Li Ju, when Xuekong met her for the first time, his impression could not be said to be good or bad. Although he was a little cold and hard to offend, he also reminded her and prevented her from using her powers in public. Since Li Ju didn't say anything just now, she must have had her intentions. Xuekong's eyes flashed with annoyance, but he didn't ask anything. "Forget it, let's make peace with it as it comes, and deal with it tomorrow as we see it." As for Li Ju's statement that she would know tomorrow, Xuekong completely ignored it and just thought she was trying to fool herself. Li Ju put down the hair dryer, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window on the soft white carpet with her bare white feet, looked at the bright neon lights outside and the stars that appeared and disappeared in the sky, and sighed. It's almost another year, yet if she hadn't met Xuekong tonight, she would have almost forgotten that she still had powers. After 2 years in the imperial capital, her life trajectory has almost blended into that of ordinary people, and there is no trace of her former self. It was as if a line had been drawn between her and the world full of superpowers, and she was isolated. But today's events reminded her again. Wherever there is any isolation, she has always subconsciously ignored it. In the blink of an eye, it's almost the end of the year, and the association's annual awakening selection is about to begin. If nothing else goes wrong, the old man will call her again to bother her. According to the past routine, this year's seedling must be praised again, and then a few newcomers will be forced into her. Li Ju snorted coldly. Does that old man think this place is a garbage dump? Can it be classified every time? The other side. Qi Jinkai returned to the bedroom with a sullen face, sat down on the bed in a muffled voice, and began to close his eyes and meditate on his relationship with Li Ju. It can't go on like this, he thought. During this period of time together, Qi Jinkai clearly knew that his feelings for Li Ju were different from before. To be honest, he knew her character very well. She was irritable, cold, and extremely tough. But sometimes it's extremely awkward. If you accidentally offend her, It's like stepping on a cat with fried fur. Because of what happened 4 years ago, his attitude towards her was not friendly, and he took advantage of her in various ways afterwards. It should have been like water and fire, or no matter how bad it was, it should have been a well-rested relationship, but he suddenly had thoughts that he shouldn't have had. When is it? Was it when he and she were sparring at Chi Maoi's birthday party, or when he went to Angkor with her, or when he watched her fall asleep in the car a few days ago? Thinking back carefully, Chi Jinkai suddenly discovered that when he got along with Li Ju of the Li family several times, his heart had a slight wave of emotion. Sometimes he would feel uncomfortable when he saw her talking and laughing with strangers and not telling him her secrets, but he didn't dare to ask for fear of her being angry. Especially tonight, Li Ju went out without saying a word, which made him feel even more uncomfortable. Even though they were under the same roof, he didn't even know when she left, which made him upset. He insisted on waiting for her for an hour, but she didn't react at all. It felt like a punch on cotton, leaving him with no way to exert any force. It can't go on like this. Chi Jinkai pondered for a long time and came to this conclusion. He had to think of a way to make her care more about him. Then what? A rare trace of confusion flashed across Chi Jinkai's cold eyes. Then what? What should he do? Let Li Ju pay more attention to him and care more about his feelings. Is he a child who needs care? Obviously impossible. What is he planning? The bedroom was eerily quiet, and the atmosphere was so silent that only his shallow breathing could be heard. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 3 minutes. Suddenly, a glimmer of light flashed in Chi Jinkai's light gray eyes. On this quiet and ordinary night, he was alone in his bedroom, and something that had never happened before suddenly flashed through his mind. Oh, he figured it out. He likes her. Chi Jinkai likes Li Ju. Oh my god. Not easy. Third Master finally got the idea. If he doesn't figure it out, I'm going to go crazy. Now it's alright. Master Ju is the only one left of the couple. It's easy to talk about anything after she's done with her. Damn it. Come on. Chi Jinkai. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy and Fei. Chapter 260. Chapter 260 is a bit too much. First update. The sun shines through the curtains and onto the carpet indoors, giving off a faint golden light. It's another new day. Li Ju got out of bed and walked to the window. She opened the curtains and the warm morning light shone on her face, coating her whole body with a soft light. Stretched and yawned, Li Ju came to the living room with eyes covered. The next moment, he was stunned in place. What's going on? Is she dazzled? How could Chi Jinkai get up earlier than her? What are you still busy in the kitchen? Is it because she hasn't woken up or is the sun rising from the west? Li Ju was wearing slippers, and the solace of the shoes made a slight sound when they rubbed against the smooth and hard floor. The tips of Chi Jinkai's ears twitched slightly, and he turned around with a smile in his light gray eyes and said, "Are you awake?" Ah! Li Ju was shocked by his smile in the morning and was stunned for a while. She felt that she had not woken up. Chi Jinkai put the steaming porridge and steamed buns on the table, pulled out a chair for Li Ju, and said, "I asked Jingyi to buy breakfast. Eat it while it's hot." Li Ju nodded dreamily, then suddenly thought of something, and suddenly looked down at herself. She hadn't washed up, her hair was frizzy, and some of it was knotted in one place. She was wearing white pajamas, and her collar was pressed down by her pleats. With a slight cough, Li Ju's eyes were slightly vacant and he said, "I'm going to wash up first." Chi Jinkai chuckled, "Okay, I'll wait for you." The tone is very calm. Compared with the indifference with which he usually speaks, it can be considered gentle. Li Ju glanced at him strangely. Why did this man seem a little abnormal today? But she didn't think much and turned around and returned to the room. Chi Jinkai stood there, his cold eyes stained with soft light, looking at Li Ju's back tenderly, thinking about the information he found last night. When chasing someone, you must first be careful and considerate, moisturize things silently, and blend into her life quietly. I don't know if it's true, but I'll give it a try first. If it doesn't work, I'll try another plan. Chi Jinkai has always been straightforward and decisive in doing things, without any hesitation. Now that he knows his thoughts about Li Ju, he will take action immediately to catch him. However, according to Li Ju's steely straight emotional intelligence, it may be a little difficult. Chi Jinkai recalled what Li Ju had done before and sighed worriedly. Li Ju changed her clothes and washed up. As soon as she sat down, Chi Jinkai gave her a bun and said, "This is sold by a time-honored store. Jing Ai has been waiting in line for a long time to try it." Good. Li Ju looked at the buns in the bowl, but his mind was not on it at all. He picked up his chopsticks and poked them subconsciously, and glanced at Chi Jinkai secretly. Seeing that there was nothing strange about his expression, I felt even more confused. I always feel that his behavior today is strange. In a slightly weird atmosphere, Li Ju finished a breakfast that was not easy to digest. After eating, Li Ju put on his coat and prepared to go out. Chi Jinkai saw this and asked, "Where are you going?" "Miyu invited me to play at her house. Bimweo sent her several messages last night, crying and complaining that she had been under house arrest by Bai Yuxiu since she was discharged from the hospital. She was not allowed to go anywhere and could only stay in the old house every day and drink various supplements. Tang, if this continues, she will suffocate to death. Let Li Ju go over and save her." Chi Jinkai raised his eyebrows. "Then how are you going to save her? Is it possible to help her escape?" "But that is impossible." Li Ju's lips curled up slightly. "I just agreed to go there and didn't say I wanted to save her. Besides, that girl is free from work now and spends all day with her brother Niwai. She should be extremely happy no matter how you look at it, so why does she need to save him?" Li Ju rolled his eyes. "Do you want me to send you off?" Chi Jinkai did not miss the opportunity to get close to Li Ju. However, Li Ju seemed to understand his purpose, waved his hand and said, "No need." Then he took the car key, opened the door and left. Chi Jinkai was left to reflect on his actions. Is it possible that it's a little too much? Bimweo had been discharged from the hospital a few days ago. In order to facilitate her care, Bai Yuxiu took her back to the Bai family's old house. There used to be many old people here when Bai's father and mother were still there, and he felt at ease serving Bimweo. The Bai family's old home is in the suburbs. It took a full 20 minutes to drive. From the noisy urban area to the quiet suburbs, Li Ju felt much more relaxed while sitting in the car. After arriving at Bai's house, Li Ju watched Bimweo jump towards him like a zombie as soon as he entered the door. "You're finally here." Bimweo was so eager to wait. Li Ju entered the door and looked around. "Don't look, my brother is not here, he has gone to work." If Bai Yuxiu hadn't been at work, she wouldn't have dared to let Li Ju come over, for fear that he would hear something he shouldn't hear. "Let's go to my bedroom, I have something to say to you." Li Ju nodded. Seeing that it was too hard for her to climb the stairs, he narrowed his eyes and stepped forward to lift her up. "Ah dash!" Bimweo screamed unexpectedly, alerting Aunt Chen who was making soup in the kitchen. She heard Bimweo's cry and thought she had fallen. She hurriedly ran out to check the situation, and saw this scene. Aunt Chen couldn't help but be stunned. To be honest, in all these years, she had never seen Bimweo so close to anyone other than Bai Yuxiu. But this is also a good thing. Since the Bai family and his wife left, the brother and sister have become more and more independent and more heartwarming. It is a good thing for the eldest lady to have her own friends, and she should be happy. Aunt Chen smiled happily and went back to the kitchen to make soup. Li Ju carried Bimwoo all the way to her bedroom. Her boyfriend was so strong. When she put Bimwoo down, she still felt dizzy. It took her a while to come back to her senses. Her face darkened, and she said, "Boss, can't you be more considerate? Hold her directly on his shoulders like a sack, with her head down, almost making her faint. This is convenient." Li Ju ignored her expression and stood up and looked around the room. The decoration in the bedroom is very pink, and there are plush toys and dolls on the table and cabinets, which is full of pink girly atmosphere. Li Ju couldn't believe that this was her room, and asked without words, "Do you like this tone?" Bimwoo's mouth twitched. "What are you thinking about? This is the room I had when I was a teenager. I have stopped living in the old house since then, and the decoration of the room has not changed." Li Ju nodded. It could be seen that this room was decorated with great care, and it was indeed a style that little girls would like. It's just Bimwoo. Li Ju can guarantee that she would not have liked this vulgar decoration style when she was a teenager. "You didn't tell your dad that you didn't like pink?" Bimwoo paused for a moment, curled his lips and smiled softly. His eyes became deep, as if he was recalling the past. "My dad was very interested in preparing a surprise for me, and I didn't want to disappoint him, so I didn't say anything." End of this chapter. She always loves to sleep. Author, Guy Enfe. Chapter 261. Chapter 261, Can't You Express Something? Second update. After that, there was no chance to talk about it. When she was 14, Bai Yuxiu had just grown up. The Bai family and his wife died in a car accident, and the Bai family's burden suddenly fell on him alone. She wanted to help him share the burden, but she had more important things to do at that time. So till now, she feels very sorry for Bai Yuxiu. Not only because she hid something very important from him, but also because she didn't stay with him during the most difficult time. Bimwoo's eyes flashed with sadness for a moment, but it was only fleeting. It's all over, and she will spend as much time with him as possible in the future. Seeing Bimwoo deep in thought, Li Ju did not interrupt her. The air was silent for a moment. After a long while, Bimwoo said, "Boss, there is something I am considering whether to tell you." "Just say what you want to say." Bimwoo pondered for a moment and said, "Recently, I have suffered from sequelae several times." Li Ju was startled, his eyes darkened, and he said, "How long has it been?" "From the Mid-Autumn Festival to now." Li Ju was furious when he heard this. "Then why didn't you tell me earlier?" Bimwoo pressed his forehead and said, "I don't want you to worry either." Having said that, they are more worried now. Bimwoo also understood this and sighed. "This side effect doesn't have much impact on me originally, but the mental power leaks from time to time. If it is in a crowded place, it will be very troublesome." She didn't take it to heart at first, but Bai Yuxiu almost photographed her having sequelae last time, which made her wary again. If someone happens to see or record the next attack, it will be a big trouble. At this moment, she couldn't ignore it even if she wanted to. Li Ju snorted softly, "I asked you to take good care of yourself to avoid mental disorder, what about you?" Not only did she not listen, she also secretly went to filming and worked hard to catch up with the announcements. Her work and rest schedules were reversed day and night, and it was difficult for her body not to think of any problems. Yes, I was wrong." Bimwoo was helpless. She was not in a good condition at the time, and she just wanted to vent her emotions by filming, and she didn't think about anything else, which led to today's results. After all, she couldn't blame anyone else, she could only blame herself. "So I asked you to come here today just to ask if I can apply for blockade treatment." Blocking treatment, as the name suggests, is to use a mental shielding device to temporarily shield and block her mental power to avoid leakage and adverse effects. This kind of treatment has certain risks for ordinary people with supernatural powers. After all, if the mental power is blocked, the power of the supernatural powers is likely to be greatly reduced or even unable to be exerted. However, Bimwe basically does not have such a problem. That's why my tone was so relaxed when I applied for blocking treatment. Li Ju nodded, this is indeed a solution. I will go back and apply for you. But you'd better let Lao Chi show it to you. Bimwe suddenly frowned and shook his head in refusal, I don't want it. Li Ju smiled, what? After all, Lao Chi also has the title of Ghost Doctor, why do you dislike it so much? The Ghost Doctor's medical skills are indeed unparalleled, but the medicines she prescribes are simply not something humans can drink. Especially when they went to see Ji Yunxia for medical treatment, because of their familiar relationship, she often used her as a guinea pig. The medicine she prescribed to them was so bad that it could even be used to poison people. In short, if she was asked to see Ji Yunxia for medical treatment, she would rather receive blockade treatment. Li Ju was speechless, are you concerned? She often drinks the medicine prescribed by Ji Yunxia, doesn't she live well? Bimwe saw what she was thinking, so he made a sound and muttered, that's not because you don't have a sense of taste, boss. After saying that, she was stunned immediately, and then she quickly covered her mouth with an apology in her eyes, I'm sorry, boss. I didn't mean it. After hearing her complaint, Li Ju paused his fingers slightly, his eyes flashed slightly, and then said sentence, nothing. This is also true. No matter how much she pretends to be and her acting skills are so good that she can fool everyone, she still has no sense of taste. Not only that, she sometimes even loses her sense of pain, or in other words, she is naturally not very sensitive to pain. Ordinary people would experience excruciating pain when they break a bone, but for her, it was just a slight sting. She is born different from others. Li Ju lowered her eyes, and her long black eyelashes covered the look underneath her eyes, making it difficult to see what she was thinking. Bimwe's heart was pounding, and she secretly regretted why she was so blind that she stabbed her in the heart. Just when he was worrying about what to say to make up for it, Li Ju's cell phone suddenly rang. Hello. A low, magnetic, and voice came from the other side, making people's ears tingle. Is Chi Jinkai? Different from usual times, he seemed to have deliberately lowered his voice today, making his originally cold voice deeper. What's the matter? Li Ju asked. It's nothing. Chi Jinkai's tall and straight figure stopped at a street food stall, attracting many passers-by's side glances. I just wanted to ask you if you want to eat crayfish. He remembered that she often shouted for food before. Li Ju's long, curly, and thick eyelashes trembled. She pursed her lips and said, no need, it was just a whim before and I wanted to put on a show in front of others, but I didn't expect that he still remembered it. Then what do you want to eat? No, no need to bother. Hearing that Li Ju was not in high spirits, Chi Jinkai didn't bother her anymore and hung up the phone. Is it the third brother? Bimwe asked. Li Ju didn't deliberately avoid it when she called him just now, so she heard him clearly. Well, ask me if there's anything I want to eat. Bimwe's eyes instantly became playful and ambiguous. Yo yo yo, have you all come to me? Li Ju frowned, what show? Where did she show off? Bimwe paused, not knowing what to say for a moment. She was convinced by Li Ju's emotional intelligence. Even though she and Chi Jinkai had not met each other for so long, she could feel that Chi Jinkai's attitude towards Li Ju was obviously different from others. Just like this time, according to Chi Jinkai's past personality, might he take the initiative to ask others if there is anything they want to eat? Impossible. The possibility of a knife falling from the sky is greater than this. But why didn't Li Ju react at all? It looked like a piece of wood, and she almost died of anxiety when she looked at it. Although the two elders, Mr. Li and Mr. Chi, are very helpful, if the two protagonists do not cooperate, it will be useless no matter how anxious others are, right? If she continues like this, is it possible for her to see good things from Li Ju and Chi Jingkai in her life? Boss, third brother is really nice to you. I know, Li Ju said. Should Baimuo still use Baimuo to remind her? Chi Jinkai's personality is indeed to her liking, and she has the best tacit understanding in doing things. Then can't you show some expression? End of this chapter.